Here's a little trivia to perk up your week. Have you ever wondered why the street names in Red Wing run the way they do? Why, for instance, do we have a 3rd, 4th, and 5th Street, but no 2nd Street? From Elvina Street to Withers Harbor Drive, we've got you covered in this week's episode of City 101. Prior to 1989, developers were primarily responsible for naming streets in new subdivisions. This caused some chaos in street naming because there was no coordinated policy in place, and we ended up with street names that sounded too similar, such as Burton Fork and Burton Lane, or names of streets that had no correlation to each other. For example, in Burnside, we've got Raymond, Johnson, Robert, and Deborah streets all intersecting each other. That seems logical, as they are all the names of people. But then you've got Butternut Avenue thrown right in the middle of it. What's a city to do? Establish policies. And in 1990, we did just that. Today, the task of naming streets falls to City Council, with advice from the Advisory Planning Commission. This volunteer group works with the Community Development Department to come up with a list of potential street names, including those of historical significance to our community. These names are passed on to developers with new subdivisions. When new subdivisions are submitted for approval, the developer selects names from this list. If City staff and the Advisory Planning Commission approve of the new street name, it then goes to City Council for final approval and voila, a new street gets named. For this reason, streets built since 1990 tend to follow an organized pattern, such as historically pertinent names like Seminary Avenue to remind us where the old seminary home used to be, or names indicative of a road's location, such as Learning Lane or Tower View Drive, or neighborhoods where the street names all follow themes, such as precedence names, as in the case of Cleveland, Jefferson, and Washington streets. Still, Red Wing is an old city, and as such, anomalies exist all over. Oh, and there never was a 1st or 2nd Street in Red Wing because the early city founders just didn't name the streets that way. No one is quite sure why. Additionally, sometimes roads get renamed when significant events happen, such as the naming of Ikata Drive down by Levy Park to commemorate Red Wing's adoption of Ikata, Japan as our sister city. So there you have it, the scoop on how streets get their names in Red Wing today and why we have street names with some quirks. Got a question you'd like answered by those in the know? Send it to the city through our Facebook, website, or call it in. It just might be the story behind the next installment of City 101.